Yesterday, US President Donald Trump addressed the United Nations. It was a blistering address in which he told Western countries they were, quote, going to hell. He called climate change a con job and complained about a broken escalator on the way into the building. Then later, while speaking to reporters, Trump seemed to U-turn his stance on Ukraine, telling NATO countries to shoot down Russian planes breaching their airspace and backing Kiev to win all of Ukraine back in its original form. I'm joined now by Robert Patman, international relations expert and University of Otago professor. Well, just first up, Robert, I mean, what did you make of that very long, rambling speech from President Trump yesterday at the UN?
Well, good morning, Michael. It was extraordinary by any measure. And as you indicated in your introduction, Mr. Trump made some extraordinary claims. He said, amongst other things, he had, under his leadership, the United States had stopped 7 wars when one is probably closer to the mark. He said climate change was a green scam. He said migration was a central problem. And the other thing was he praised himself in the speech for never being wrong. What was interesting was the reaction of the audience. It was received in stony silence, and one was left with the impression that America, under Mr. Trump's leadership, is steadily isolating itself.
And so, obviously, this is hugely damaging to US diplomacy. Or is it the case that Trump doesn't want anything to do with the UN? I mean, he was highly critical of it, right?
Again, that was a contradiction. The United Nations is only as strong or as weak as its members allow it to be, and its strongest member is the United States. If you take Gaza as an example, it's the United States which has exercised the veto as a permanent member of the UN Security Council 6 times to prevent a ceasefire there. So, the United States is probably the most influential member of the UN. So when he talks about the UN as if the United States has got nothing to do with it, that's factually incorrect. And Mr. Trump is actually opposed to multilateralism. He doesn't like multilateralism. He prefers bilateral relations where the United States, as the most powerful country in the world, always has the upper hand.
Yeah, I mean, only last month we saw the president meet with Vladimir Putin in Alaska, and now he's telling NATO to shoot down Russian planes. What has changed his mind in your view, Robert?
Well, I'm not sure it's a complete change. It's a performative change. And it's probably been most welcome by the Europeans and President Zelensky of Ukraine. But Mr. Trump is very careful. He said he's happy to support increased sanctions against Putin, providing those countries which are Hungary and Slovakia and Turkey, which buy oil from Russia, stop buying oil from Russia, which is a put of get out of jail card, means that that's very unlikely. And so Mr. Trump probably doesn't have to follow through with his willingness. It is interesting that after 9 months in office, Mr. Trump has now reached the view that Ukraine can actually win this conflict. It can eject Russian invaders from their country. And the big question for many diplomats watching was, where has he been for the last 9 months? That was always the case from the beginning, that Russia had illegally invaded the country, and the president of the most powerful country in the world should not have been pandering to a blatant violation of international law. But of course, Mr. Trump doesn't seem to take international law very seriously. I do think that the United States, is in rapid. It would always, of course, to some extent, have problems with many countries in the developing world, the global South, because the United States is seen as very much a defender of the status quo, which America is the most powerful country. I think the big development from this is that Mr. Trump's leadership is separating the United States from many of its traditional allies, other liberal democracies. I don't think this speech has done anything to boost the standing of the Trump administration in the eyes of countries which have traditionally looked to the United States for leadership.
No, exactly right. Well, look, we really appreciate your analysis on Herald Now this morning. That is Robert Patman, International
Thanks, Michael.
Relations expert at the University of Otago. Well, it is 7:35. We're a bit late to the news. Here's Neva.